you ever experienced saying your inner voice, I love you? Your own inner voice? Because I was thinking if this box has a kind of a self too, and it's replaced, so if you turn your viewpoint around or in reverse and experience the box as a kind of person too, facing you as a beholder. This is one thing I was thinking about, and the other one, can an inner voice say I love you to yourself?
Well, it's interesting that you ask that, because that material, I got that material from a installation I did in England that involved, it was based on the idea of the affirmation, this kind of self-talk idea. And so in that installation, I had other people talking to you as if they were part of your inner psyche. So like taking the voices from inside and externalizing them. So it's interesting that you asked the interior voice. In some way, I think that the voices inside the box function both as the exterior voices and the interior voice. They have personality, and some of them have a lot of personality, so that they can't really be your interior voice. You know, I definitely wanted the reference of outside of yourself as well.
Maybe this would lead over to you, David. This is one of your basic questions. The separation of the voice to speaking.
Yeah, I should say that, you know, I wrote this book, Art and Ventriloquism, and someone asked me last night how Thomas ever got a hold of it, and I said I didn't know, and I still don't know. But I use ventriloquism as a metaphor for what we do with art. And so it interests many of the things that philosophers are interested in. It's illusion without deception, and speaking in other voices, and being beside oneself, and the dislocation of voice. And it's the animation of inanimate objects, which I think a lot of artworks are. And when we interpret artworks, we say, what does this work say to you? What is this work about? In some ways. And so I think the idea of what the work says, even though you're there alone, is I think important to what we do with works of art. I think that ventriloquism is just like a kind of a defunct performance art, and it's very low tech, and in that case the idea of it really interests me. Now I think the artworks also identify the artist in the same way as the dummy identifies the ventriloquist, as well as the other way around. And so I think those are the things that can happen with works of art. Now with this I love you box, you know, I think that the idea of this dislocated voice, you know, that comes out of a box with nothing in it, is very interesting to me. But I think the way I understood it was as if I were listening to someone else saying I love you, not anyone addressing me, you know, many other people, as if I were almost like a voyeur, you know, hearing what other people were saying. And, you know, one of the great gifts of art is the taking of art personally. And I think this is a very courageous work because of this phrase, I love you, which has been so, you know, we've all OD'd on this in virtually songs since we were growing up. And to be able to sort of tackle this as, you know, as something is I think really takes a lot to do. And I'm not really too sure how I think one would listen to these phrases very differently if one was in love, and very differently than if one was not, or had a bad relationship, or, you know, a good relationship, or various places. And so the emotional reaction to this box, which has nothing in it, I think would differ personally and greatly, and I think that's what a lot of art should do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant when it's the mirror, like when that it should be a mirror
Do you think there's a communication comparable to ventriloquism between the box of Julianne and the dummy-like conversation?
Well, I think there are some things in the interpretation of it, because I think the voices that we choose to hear, to relate to from the box, would be our own choices. And I think the ventriloquist also makes those kind of choices. But the dummy is clearly an inanimate medium, you know, for the voice. It's the, to paraphrase Lacan, the dummy is the trap for the gaze, you know, and I think the box here is also, you know, sort of a focal of phonetic attention, you know, and it's very difficult to get away from that. I mean, I think, for example, I found myself not just listening to these voices at an increased decibel level, but staring into the box while I was listening, you know, and I think that's would be very hard to get away from. And I think the same is true with the dummy, since the ventriloquist just doesn't throw the voice. It's all a matter of illusion, the way, let's say, ventriloquism works in its most common experience in movies, because you've got your speakers up there and the voice, the mouths on the screen, you know, sort of walking around, but to you it's totally seamless, you know, and you see the voices coming from the mouths on the screen. So perhaps we better give Rachel a shot.